LED lights, nicer alloy wheels, a bigger, longer range battery, a far better infotainment system, vehicle to load accessories, 360 cameras, a better interior. They're just some of the things that come to the revised version of the MG ZS, which now has a range of up to 440 kilometers if you get the longer range battery, and it's still pretty affordable because for less than 35 grand you'll get the top spec one, which has leather seats and a glass roof that opens, and lots more things. So let's check out the revised version of this really growing in popularity car here on Nobby on Cars. And hello to the people of Limerick. See my reg? I deliberately took a car that didn't have a Dublin reg on it today. The badge now operates as the boot opening spot. We still have a boot that is not quite 500 litres, but it's not too bad at all. The floor can be raised and lowered, and there's still space to store things down here. There's a little cargo net. We have a light that I believe is white and a parcel shelf. The bag for your cables has got a very strong Velcro patch on it here. You can tether hook it on, and it's a little bit smaller. The red piping is gone, but it's actually a better quality finish to what was in the previous version of the car, which, by the way, is still on sale. To be honest with you, the jump to 34,000 for the exclusive version. The boot, by the way, is 488 litres to be exact. With the long range battery, is so small, I don't think it would make any sense to go for the smaller size car anymore. The difference, by the way, is obvious because one has roof rails and a roof and the other doesn't. So you'll know the more expensive model looking at it that way. Not huge changes to the back of the car, a little bit of black polished plastics and stuff going on, but generally it's kind of business as usual. There are some LED lights, but not here, my friends. 72.6 kilowatt hour battery. You can get to 80% in 20 minutes. If you find the right charging, it will do up to 76 kilowatt charging, but you'd want to be at 10% state of charge, and you want your battery to be pretty warm. And we'll cover some extra new settings that come inside the car to do with batteries. The charging port is now moved a little bit to the right, or to the ports where you open them. There's nice damping in them now. There's an LED display here. It tells you that the car is charging. And if you're using CCS, well, you open the extra bit here. It's actually just a little bit stiff because it's a brand new car. Oh, hang on. Open the top one first. That would make sense, wouldn't it? So the badge is just the badge now, and there's cameras down here because you can get 360-degree cameras on the car as standard. So that's why there's extra bits. And your LED lights are now here on the front, very bright, projecting on dark country roads, all good. I'm hoping this all can be picked up on the camera because it's pretty windy today. In the back there's charging for USB and USB-C. This has a little cover over the roof. You are sitting quite high up off the ground. That lack of support on the bench, still kind of there if I'm honest. Could come out a little bit further. But there's loads of headroom. Even with the glass roof, doesn't impose too much. You now get an armrest. I can't remember if you did before. And there are some places to put cup holders. You're still going to get 2 child seats in here. The floor is still flat. And I've deliberately left these seats quite far back. So even, you know, with a taller driver, especially in the passenger side, I mean, it's not Titanic proportions, but it means, like, if you move them forward, your leg room is really going to be generous. And it's still quite acceptable back here. And for kids, the door, it's a decent height. So it's not going to block out their view. Kind of business as usual back here as well, though. Can't notice any huge differences. Main differences are up front. Now wait till I get started. We've got revisions of things like MG's Pilot Assist, which a double pull on the stalk will make this car keep up in traffic. Traffic jam assist is what they call it if you're crawling in the M50, the Jack Lynch tunnel, or just normal city centre traffic. This car will keep on going. Now, if you don't move for 2 seconds when the car pulls away, you'll have to just tap it and resume, whatever. But it will do that, and obviously faster motorway speeds also. You can now limit the charging to maybe 50% if you don't want it to charge to 100. You can time the charging, you can preheat the car, you can preheat the battery. There's a lot of upgrades in that setting alone on this newer version of it. The screen is so much better. It's easier to use. It's much more responsive. There's shortcut buttons to the things you want. There's further shortcuts on the bottom of the screen. They've really got it right there, actually. Further USB-C and USB charging. There's wireless charging in the more expensive model of it. There's CarPlay, there's Android. They've gone all Skoda on us, lads. There's a USB port up here for a dash cam. Cup holders, they can be covered if you've got valuables in here. There's an armrest. This centerpiece with the gear selector hasn't changed, as really they have the modes for sport and how you do your regen. There's 3 levels of that, by the way. Almost one pedal driving if you go to the most severe. The steering wheel hasn't changed. I think they were happy with that. They do claim the interior is a little bit better. You can get an app now. The MG app can lock the car, tell you your range, time charging. Instruments here are now all digital. Do you remember they were needles? That's all gone. And the fit and finish, it has just stepped it up a little bit, like the door cards and things like that. There are remnants of the previous model. It's not going to be like a totally different car, but certainly it feels a little bit more luxurious for not a massive jump in price. Mainland Europe models are getting an 11 kilowatt charger as standard. We're not. MG say we do 90% of charging at home, and you just don't get the benefit of that faster charging when cars are capable of it. They're your 22 kilowatt hour chargers, the public ones from ESB, the odd shopping centre car park. You can take advantage of it, but MG have said there's no point. So the Irish cars won't get the 11, it'll just be the 7.2. We now have 156 brake horsepower. We can tow 500 kilos. So if you got a few bikes, things like that, don't think you're really going to get a caravan as such. Maybe one of the smaller trailers. They claim the 3 levels of regen braking can give you 1 pedal driving. I'll be the judge of that very soon. And for things like coming out of junctions and things like that, you now have the availability of 360 degree view cameras, which is why you have little cameras in the front, side mirrors, everything. Blind spot. There's an awful lot of tech in these cars now. And in terms of value for money, being an EV, I don't know if many people are going to be able to touch them. Well, that's a loud indicator. You wouldn't miss that. I like the digital display. It tells you in percentage terms how much power you're using. Oh, okay, there's a bit of wheel slip there as I floor it. Very quickly you're into 80 kilometers an hour. No time at all, actually. So it's probably actually a more gradual torque build up than the last model, but I like it. Feels nicely planted. They have said that the resistance from the wheel is quite strong in terms of lane keeping assist. I can vouch for that. That definitely feels a bit more like if you look down for a second or you're not paying attention, it will really kick you back into reality very, very quickly. Noise-wise, do we have any pillar action? There's a bit. It's a very windy day though. I do feel pushing it into a bend and accelerating at the same time, you might want to just dial that back a little bit. I feel like, hang on now, I want to stay on this side of the road. But yeah, it doesn't like that. It's planted though. There's a good weight to the steering, I like that. Something else that we'll keep an eye on the road signs, and if you'd like it to not let you go faster than those signs, you can let, again, your double stalk friend here sort it out for you. They're being very upfront as well, MG, about the range. So they're saying, yes, 440, good weather, eco mode, not hammering the car. Interestingly, they've also established that using the heated seats does not use any significant level of range. Visibility, I think, is very, very acceptable. Rear window is nice and big. I'm trying to remember, do I remember that being a little bit smaller actually on the last version of the car. So 95% battery, and we have 387 kilometers in that. That's 7 degrees. So, you know, they're all the things that would expect to go against you. So if you want to do a vehicle to load, you get a little accessory that just plugs into the car. They didn't mention how much that is, but that's something like, for example, on the Ioniq 5 or the EV6, you're jumping into different spec levels to get. Although I think in the EV6 actually it's standard. But anyway, I must find out because I don't think it would be too expensive. And then you can charge things like bikes, and if you were camping, you could charge a fridge, or I don't know, use an inflatable thing to pump up duvets, or don't pump up duvets, mattresses. That's the one. I'm really liking this upgrade to the screen. I mean, it physically looks better. It's easier to use. The last version with the 3 different color chunks, I wasn't a massive fan of it. But this is a lot better. So nicely done. That indicator, it's very loud. That might bug you after a little while. It's very smooth. It really is actually, and it's pretty quiet overall. And even on these, well, upgraded alloys, but they're still not huge. Handles bumps very well, so you're not paying with comfort levels by having alloys on it. I think with the digital display upgrade, the screen upgrade, a few little touches here and there in the interior, it does feel like a significantly improved car for a relative small jump in price, and the fact that you're now getting well over 400 kilometers out of your range. If you're at 100%, that's quite decent. A very, very interesting overall package is what I would call that, actually. Starting to see a lot of these as taxis, this and the MG5, and I think taxi drivers are also a good acid test for cars. Remember when only taxi drivers drove Skoda Octavias, and now everybody drives a Skoda Octavia. I think if they're good enough for taxi drivers, they're good enough for generally everybody. And there's actually a few taxi drivers in Ireland who are doing, not necessarily reviews, but they're living with their MGs, and they're kind of doing vlogs about how they get on, what's the range like, charging, all those things. So if you're not sure, I think the proof is in a taxi driver's pudding, whatever that is. Anyway, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. I hope this has given you a good kind of just whirlwind look at the new revised version of the MG ZS. Very hard to argue with what the spec is and the price of this car. You really can't. Size of the battery as well. Sorry, German premium Germans. This car may upset you a little bit. I get not everyone's going to want to go for a badge that they're not too familiar with. Get that. You have to ask yourself though, what does an ID4 do that this doesn't? Apart from badge. I'll leave you on that note. Never been a better time to buy one of these. Serious value at 34 and a bit for the top range. You want to drop a few grand below, you can. It's a serious way to get into an electric car with loads of spec, really fast charging options, really good range. Things like 360 cameras that you don't get in certain premium cars are like 100 grand. It's worth a look, guys. It was beforehand, but certainly now, with the slightly better looks on it, and especially the price, just go check one of these out. You've got to touch it in the flesh, experience it. I'm sure you could arrange yourself an overnight test drive if you wanted. These cars will be available from early 2022, so it's good to get a first look on the channel. I gotta wrap it up before I get blown away. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.